Okay, it says we're live. Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to this live podcast. I'm your host, Uriah Kiser. I'm the publisher of Potomac Local News. Thank you for joining us today on Facebook. And if you missed this, we'll put this out. You can watch it later. We'll put it on YouTube, and we'll post a story about it on PotomacLocalNews.com, because we're talking about something that a lot of people in our region, not just in one particular area, but across Virginia, actually across the state, are talking about, and that is data centers. And joining us today is Erin. Erin, what is your last name?
Sanzero.
Okay. Can you spell that for me, just so I get that right when I go to write the story?
Absolutely. It's S-A-N-Z as in zebra, E-R-O, Sanzero.
That's cool. Okay. And you are a founding member of the group Protect Stafford, and I assume that you live in Stafford County.
I sure do.
And you guys are all about raising awareness about data centers. And when you contacted me, you told me that you'll be having an event tomorrow night. Tomorrow is Tuesday the 13th. If I don't have my dates mixed up, Tuesday, the 13th of May, 2025, at Porter Library in North Stafford. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what your group is and what you'll be talking about tomorrow at Porter Library.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. Let me add to what you just held up in terms of that public meeting that we're having, that it is at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night at the Porter Library, and everyone is welcome. And sort of to that end, it's meant to be a public informational meeting. Public Stafford really started as a group of neighbors trying to understand rezoning applications, things we were seeing. And as I think many people who are coming to the data center conversation may have experienced, the more you learn and you read, it's a bit of a hydra, it's an octopus, and you realize there's a lot to understand, there's a lot to discuss. And simply put, what we learned shocked us. So we're now in Stafford County seeing a wave of applications to rezone land for data center development to heavy industrial in many cases. It's going from agricultural use, or at best, light industrial, to this use to accommodate that development. And it's an industry that's rapidly expanding across the state in our area, and people don't understand it. The novelty of the tech, the size of the development, it's something that we need to educate. And so simply put, Protect Stafford is about educating and empowering residents of Stafford to have a voice in this conversation for something that's going to change the landscape of our county.
So I think it's fair to say that your group Protect Stafford is one that is cautioning residents about data centers and its effect on the landscape. Not only the landscape, but when we see these data centers come in, we see them using water resources and driving up utility costs in the name of electricity across the state. And those bills are going up. We've seen this year Dominion announcing for the first time since the early 90s that it will be raising its electric rate across the board, not just in some portions or pockets. This is across the board, and a lot of that is attributed to these data centers. As you mentioned, Erin, we're seeing these rezoning applications come in one right after the other, and they are targeting large swaths of agricultural land. For those who don't know what a data center is, if you've not been to Loudoun County, if you've not driven through western Prince William County, and now ever more it's starting to pop up in the Woodbridge, eastern Prince William County area. These are large buildings, warehouse-sized buildings, 80 feet tall in height, multiple football fields in length, and they house computer servers. And so a lot of people think when they drive by at cursory glance, they say, wow, look at all those jobs that will be coming to this area because this massive commercial building is being built. That's going to be something that's going to be a job maker. Well, in fact, these centers employ fewer than 100 people on average. They're about 50 to 60 people. And because they are essentially just computer rooms. That's all they are. They house computers, and companies rent out the racks. These computers are stored in racks, and companies rent them out, and they power their online presence. And so you and I having this conversation right now online, it's being powered by a data center somewhere. But anymore, especially with we've seen a proliferation of these data centers in Virginia over the past 10 years. And now, as you said, we're seeing them in Stafford County, which has prompted the creation of your group. So talk more about your group, Protect Stafford, and who's involved and why you wanted to start it.
Yeah, like I said, and you said so much that's wonderful that I want to tag in on. At the end of the day, Protect Stafford is a resident-driven organization. And simply put, it does not seem that there is anybody really advocating for the long-term interests of Stafford County in this conversation around what land to rezone, to develop, the cumulative effects. There is no federal or state oversight. And so what this means for us is that the decisions about this is happening at the local level. And so unfortunately, the other side of that coin is that while there are people who are deeply invested in our local governance, we know that civic apathy is at its highest in local government. So if we as the residents don't get educated and don't use our voice and our vote to have a say in this conversation, it's simply going to happen to us, and we're not going to like the results. And like you said, there is a multiplicity of reasons and things to be concerned about. It is about how it's going to look, and that, yes, each proposal carries with it an entire electrical highway infrastructure system that is more than the data center itself. It is huge transmission lines. It is switching stations and substations that are lit up 24/7, that are being put adjacent to neighborhoods or to homes, that are going through our riparian areas, that are going through and across parks and behind schools. And eventually, when we run out of space for doing that, Dominion can and will eminent domain homes and businesses because they have a duty to serve power. So there's so many layers of this. But one of the things that you said that I really want to name, going back to some of the data center specifics, we're seeing in Stafford County, in one case, a height request of 105, right? Not 80. And they're asking for additional height on top of that to put equipment. So when you're talking about 105 and then you're throwing a diesel generator on top of that, we're now potentially pushing up to 130 feet high in the air, right? And when the power grid is too maxed to supply the huge power resources that these buildings need, these diesel backup generators are what kick on to supply the power. So there are water, power, noise pollution, light pollution, air pollution, humming, constant vibration. There are a swath of concerns that are much bigger than just who's living really close to them. And I want to state also that you named Dominion $252 per household by 2027 in increases to energy bills. And when you look at charts, and we'll show this tomorrow night in our meeting, you can see an energy consumption that we're really flat. It is the data center industry alone that is causing that spike, but it is ratepayers, it is citizens of Virginia and the state that are going to pay for these infrastructure upgrades.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there when you said that Dominion has, that Dominion has a mandate to supply power. And that's how Dominion sort of looks at all of this. I mean, Dominion doesn't come in and say, hey, this particular area or user or town or, county is using too much power. We're not going to approve anything. That's not the way Dominion works. Dominion works that if the jurisdiction approves it, and if the darn thing gets built come hell or high water, they don't really care if it has to be powered. They will do it. They'll find a way to do it. And normally the way they do it is they build new infrastructure, whether that's substations or power lines or whatever, as you just mentioned. And the ratepayers, you and me, who pay electric bills every month, have to pay for it. The cost is consistently passed on to the ratepayer or the customer, as they say. So I've been covering this issue since about 2017. In Prince William County, when these things started to pop up, and again, these rezoning applications came in. And what we saw in 2017 in Prince William County is that the county government created the data center overlay zone. And what they did is they drew a map. They took a map of the county and they said, okay, in this, within this circle or area, we think that data centers should go here within this overlay because this area has ample power and ample water, and it's rural, and it's not going to, affect homes, because we all know that noise can be an issue, especially when those diesel generators, if they kick on, they get really loud really quick. And everybody and Prince William County was actually lauded nationwide for this forward-thinking approach to data center development by creating this, essentially making this map and creating that district. And then only a few years later, they started to approve data centers outside of that district. And so now what we see, or what we have coming in neighboring Prince William County, is Prince William will have the most data centers per capita anywhere in the world when they build the Prince William Digital Gateway next to the Manassas National Battlefield. And as anyone knows, anybody who's ever visited Manassas from out of state, and I know a lot of people from West Coast, all over the country, they come there because it's a Civil War hotspot. And so it draws a lot of tourism. But now when visitors come, they're going to see these massive data centers abut this historical park that has long been a tourism draw. And so I think Stafford, at least I'd like to think Stafford, has watched the developments that have happened in Loudoun County. They've seen what Prince William County did and what Prince William County didn't. And those who might be asking themselves, why? So if they use power, if they use water, if they're an eyesore, and if the diesel generators kick on, they make a lot of noise and they get noisy for neighbors, why would anybody want them here? And the quick answer to that is because they generate, at least they're supposed to, generate a lot of tax money with little investment. And so that seems to be the argument for approving these things, because the amount of computer and they call it C&P tax, computer and peripheral tax, property tax, all these little line items you see on a tax, on a budget, they're really high tax generators, and you don't have to widen the roads. You don't have to build new schools to house the kids and the families that come and work at these things, because they produce so few jobs. So it's, for many local officials, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, thinking, wow, we're really going to get in on the gravy train here. And that seems to be why they want these just about everywhere in all these counties.
May I say a few things in response to that? Thank
Please
you so
do,
much.
because I really didn't ask a question there. I just kind of threw a bunch of stuff at you.
Listen, that's okay. It's great. Let me just say that Prince William's Digital Gateway is a great example of, I think, many people standing in shock at, I think we've all wondered where we might draw the line, what might be a bridge too far. And I think it is, a paragon of, I can't believe that we've said yes to this. It's projected to use 3 gigawatts of power. That is, for equivalency's sake, 2 full-sized nuclear power plants. That is, it's an exorbitant, unfathomable amount of energy that we're talking about using. And again, like you said, the adjacency is such a question to be discussed. And so, coming back to, yes, you've named it. The number one driver isn't it always? It's about the money. One should always follow the money. And certainly, and this is the challenge, everyone stands to make a lot of money in theory. I can say confidently, the developer will make the most money possible by rezoning the land to develop it in this way. So the developer is highly incentivized to rezone for this purpose. We're living in a tech gold rush. And this is just a tremendous amount of land speculation that's happening right under our feet. And we are all standing blowing raspberries, unaware of what's happening. And by the time we start to see it and understand it, our fear is that ship will have sailed. That horse will be so far out of the barn, you can't see the cloud of dust. And so what we are trying to do with Protect Stafford is, yes, I hope that our elected officials, that all of us are looking at our forebears in Prince William and Loudoun and saying, let us learn from their lessons. Let us do better. Let us do this responsibly. Protect Stafford is not anti-development. It is not anti-progress. We are pro-conversation. We are pro-understanding what's at stake and having difficult, complicated, nuanced conversations and really talking about each one of these applications. Our sincerest hope is that residents across districts get involved. This should not be about Garrisonville fighting over one thing and then Hartwood lighting up over another and then Falmouth. We need to band together as a county of constituents and apply pressure to our board, to our planning commission to hold them accountable to develop Stafford responsibly so that our children are proud to live here, to come from here, and want to live here. And that cannot happen without conversation, because if a developer says to a county that needs revenue, here's your golden goose, develop the land, this will solve all your problems. It's hook, line, and sinker. We're going to get into the math. We're going to get into the 3 tax incentives that are offered and to whether or not at the end of the day, these data centers are as lucrative as the promises that they offer us are. The TLDR for those listening is that they are not. It is speculative, and the amount of revenue, there's a lot to discuss about that and the cost benefit analysis of whether it's worth it. We will also see that Prince William County is now litigating with Microsoft and Amazon over the real estate assessment for their data centers, which is where the county makes their money. And so now that land is not monetized. Huge businesses with way deeper legal team pockets are suing them over it, and they're being filed suit by HOAs, by a trust. And so they're not making any money, and they're spending money to try to get to this money. So I really think there's a lot of reason to slow down, educate, and be decisive about how we move forward.
Yeah, it is kind of a mess in Prince William County. I mean, not only do we have, as you said, those data center operators litigating the county because they don't want to, they got their rezoning, but they don't want to pay the property tax on it. We're also seeing residents who banded together in the western part of Prince William County to sort of do a what is the word I'm looking for? They just got their properties together and wanted to sell as a group to a data center developer. It says, please come take our houses and build data centers here. And they were successful in getting the rezoning. And so the land is rezoned, and now it's valued far greater than it had been when it was just a single family home on a big tract of land. And their property tax bill shot through the roof. And now they're suing because it's like, wait a minute, because the data center developer is not ready to build. So they got their rezoning, and the data center can build whenever it wants to build. And these property owners who are still living there are they don't like these big tax bills that we slap with. Now in Manassas City, which is separate from Prince William County, independent Manassas City, we broke a story last week that a data center that went in that had just opened up this year replaced an old brick manufacturing plant that was there for several years. It's the data center is affectionately called the Brickyard, is homage to its predecessor. But what happened here is a bank leased out all of the servers within this data center, and state law precludes banks from paying all these computer and peripheral taxes, all these,
they're tax exempt.
They are tax exempt, and the city really had no say. I mean, they had no advance notice. They cannot tell the data center operator, essentially the landlord, that no, you can't have this person as a tenant, this company as a tenant in your business. The city can't say that, and there's state law sort of allows it. So yes, the city will collect much higher property taxes on that improved property than that old the brick plant, but all of those other taxes, the computer and peripheral taxes and everything else they were hoping to get, they're not going to get. They're going to lose out in millions of dollars in annual revenue. And that is always the thing that we hear all the time when these things come for approval, these rezonings. Think about the tax revenue. So we'll be talking about that. I have another one of these Facebook Live things on Wednesday, and I've got 2 city council people who are joining me. I've got someone who's running for city council, and Stafford County delegate Paul Milday will actually be on that call as well. So anybody listening or whatever, 3:00 on Wednesday, we'll be talking about what to do in that scenario, because that certainly blindsided a lot of people. Erin, I'm glad to see, and it's interesting to me as a guy who's been around a while and has covered both Prince William and Stafford County. And I always used to joke that in Prince William County, there are groups for cleaner water and better air and more comfortable tennis shoes. I joke about that last part. But in Stafford County, there was never anything. It was just like these things would come to the board and we'd do the song and dance and public hearing and a few people would show up. And now in 2025, I think residents in Stafford County have awoken to not only data centers, but all kinds of development issues that are going on. We were seeing this Buc-ee's thing come into Embry Mill, and that has the community polarized. And so we're seeing more and more people get out there and use their voices and become aware of what's going on. And so I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, and what do you think that might mean for Stafford County as it grows up and gets larger?
Yeah, I think that you've really named it. To the tax conversation, which I commend for a future interview. We have the lowest rate by a significant margin from any other county in Northern Virginia, and I'll let you crack into that. But when you stack our three tax incentives, it really we've just sort of given away the farm. It was set in order to attract data centers, and I think everyone can look at this and understand we were successful. We were perhaps too successful. And what we do with that, what we're able to change into the future, that's a conversation. But certainly there's a lot to really dig into quite deeply on the revenue side of this to understand it better. In terms of the county writ large, look, this fall, there are 4 of 7 board supervisor seats up for election. We've got multiple people running. I would love to see some seats flip. I would love to see what we're starting to see happen in other counties where people are taking a stake on their data center positions. And we're really beginning to move together again as a cohesive whole, galvanized as a county around how we want Stafford County to look into the future. What's at stake for us as a group? And I do think things like Buc-ee's and this sort of unchecked development has people asking themselves some big questions about why they live here, what they want it to look like, what they want for their children. And I really hope that everyone hears from this conversation. Please reach out to us. Please get involved. I welcome a dissenting opinion and I welcome a conversation. What I want is people to not be for or against data centers and they're done with that. I want them to deeply understand the issues and be able to have very real conversations with their friends, show up to planning commission and board meetings, and really say your piece in an intelligent, educated way about why you feel. And I want you to have an opinion about each application. I want you to understand each one and why you think it's a better or a worse use case and to speak about that. That's really my hope for us as a county, that we really do this discernment together as a cohesive group.
Okay, before I let you get into all the specifics and what time and where and everything, I'm going to issue clarification and I'm going to get nerdy on you here because the tax rate, you said we have the lowest tax rate. The tax rate in Stafford County is actually higher than Prince William County as of this year. However, the bills in Prince William County, if you live in Prince William County, you will be paying more because the value of your home is more than it is in Prince William County. So just to be clear, in Stafford County, the rate of property tax, homeowners, the real estate tax is 0.9236. In Prince William, it's 0.906. And so
I apologize. I meant to be speaking to the tax rate for CNP for data centers at a
okay, I gotcha.
That's what I was
just put that.
And
that makes sense. And so Prince William actually just raised theirs up, so it's very probable that so. But we're seeing, and you talk about the elections coming up, and you talk about people getting involved. I think you're spot on with the implication. I mean, in Prince William County, and I know I keep throwing it back there, but again, they've sort of been at the epicenter of the past 18, 24 months. And we saw the board of the chairman, the chair of the board of supervisors, lose a primary bid because she went all in on this digital gateway at that national park. And voters said, well, no, thank you very much. And then they put Deshandra in, who is now the current Deshandra Jefferson, who is the current at-large chair. So, and that was a Democratic primary up there. And so there was Democrats up there who said, no, we've had enough. We don't want any more of this stuff. And it's strange. When you talk about politics and all this, it does make for strange political bedfellows, because in this area, we have seen Democrats really go hard for these data centers. Really, hey, these are great. These are revenue generators. We need these. And you've seen Republicans in this area. They're the ones that you say are always for business and growth and, money, are the tree huggers here in this situation, saying, no, let's not bulldoze the last rural parts of Northern Virginia for these massive things. Now you go anywhere else in the state and it's kind of, it sort of evens back out, but it's weird political bedfellows that you have on this one issue here in our area.
This is something I really love about it, that there is, we all know that we're living in a tremendously divisive time. I think it's what a commentary on how important something is when you see this degree of bipartisan work around an issue. And we are seeing it. We are seeing it at the local level. We're seeing it at the federal level. We're seeing it at the national level. So it isn't, we are wonderfully unique and we are not, right? It's a real commentary on how important this is. And I think it's a reflection of the reality that there's a limited supply of power. We have a limited supply of land. It is a terminal resource, right? And so we are on track here in Stafford County. I think that as of right now, we're 56% developed. You can fact check me on this, but we are on a trajectory by 2035 to be 75% developed with all of the development. I'm extending this beyond data centers, but to say data centers are a huge driver because their footprints are so large and the land speculation opportunities here so financially rich for the developer. But when you add to that the other development opportunities with our proximity and what's happening here, 75% developed. Is that what we want? If that's what the county wills, I yield to it. But I don't think that my conversations or yours would suggest that at scale, we have a majority opinion that that's the way we should go. And so I hope people get involved in this conversation because it is at the local level that we live our lives. So please get involved.
And I talked about Prince William's data center development area, data center overlay district. And to be fair, as you talked about that, I remember Stafford County years ago drew up something called the Urban Services Area, the USA is what they call it. And that is another circle on a map. And because they had ample power and water and access to, major highways and roadways, this is where we should be developing in Stafford County. And it's interesting to see where the development goes and falls within that border. And of course, outside those borders. And when these data centers come in, we've seen a few be proposed outside of this urban growth boundary is what they always call it. So I think we've defined the problem. We've talked about it. I think people who are paying attention to what we've been talking about here kind of get the sense of what's at stake and what's happening. Where can they come to learn more about your group and of course more about your meeting tomorrow night?
Yeah, of course. So you can find us online at protectstafford.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Protect Stafford. And then this will not be our last, but we have tomorrow evening, the 13th of May at 6:30 p.m. at the Porter Branch Library in rooms 1 and 2, a public education meeting where we will be presenting and talking in greater detail about all of these topics and obviously asking everyone to leave there empowered to have much greater understanding and thinking about how they're feeling called to engage in this conversation in the county.
Okay.
And I hope to see you all there.
Very good. Well, Erin, thanks so much for coming on the Potomac Local Podcast and talking to us about this. Keep us in the loop as your group progresses. And, as these issues come up, I'm sure we'll be hearing from you as these rezoning applications come forward. And if you ever hear of a Stafford County citizens group for more comfortable footwear, I'd love to interview them. I think that'd be a great, let me know as you're out and about and doing
It's going to be started by a woman. It's going to be started by a woman.
I think that's only fair given that heel. When I look at a pair of heels, I just
Yeah.
like that's a brave lady for
Oh,
wearing those.
yeah.
Thank, all right. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next
Thank
time
you
on the
so
Potomac
much.
Local News Podcast.